The wind across the Montana plains did not howl like a lonely animal. It roared like a living beast that wanted blood. It tore over the frozen land and slammed against anything standing upright. Winter in the 1880s did not forgive mistakes. It buried them. Colt Maddox walked straight into that storm. Snow clung to his long coat and froze along the dark stubble on his jaw. His shoulders were wide enough to block half the wind, and the thick leather gloves on his hands were cracked from years of ranch work and fistfights. A fresh cut split his eyebrow, dried blood stiff against his skin. He did not wipe it away. He did not feel it. Behind him, a single horse dragged a small sled loaded with 2 elk carcasses. Food for the season. Survival. Colt lived alone by choice. People talked too much, asked too many questions, wanted things, and he had learned long ago that when you gave people something, they came back for more. The snow came down harder. He lowered his head and kept walking toward the tree line where his cabin hid between thick pines. That was when he saw it. A wagon. Half broken, one wheel split clean in 2, sunk deep in frozen mud. The canvas top ripped open and snapping in the wind like a torn flag. No horses, no tracks fresh enough to follow. He should have kept walking. A man alone in winter did not stop for trouble. Then he saw a hand, small, bare, pale against the dark wood under the wagon. Colt stopped. For one long breath, he stared at it. Then he walked over. She was wedged beneath the axle, curled tight, as if trying to fold into the earth. Her dress was thin and torn at the shoulder. Her hair, once golden, was dark with ice and dirt, and her lips were cracked and blue. A bruise colored one side of her face, deep purple. She did not move when he knelt. Colt pressed 2 fingers to her neck there. Faint. Alive. He exhaled slowly. Any smart man would leave her. The storm would finish what someone else had started. No witness. No burden. Colt was not a smart man in that moment. He slid his arms beneath her. She weighed almost nothing. Too light. Like someone who had not eaten right in weeks. Her head fell against his chest as he lifted her. He did not look around to see if anyone was watching. He placed her carefully on the sled, wrapped his spare fur over her, and tightened the rope so she would not slip off. Then he walked toward the trees. The cabin was small, built by his own hands 5 winters ago. Thick logs. 1 narrow window. A stone chimney that leaned slightly to one side. It stood far enough from town that no rider passed by accident. Inside, it smelled of pine smoke and leather. He laid her on his bed without hesitation. The fire had died low. He crouched, fed it wood, and blew until flames snapped back to life. Heat slowly filled the room. He boiled water, cut away the frozen cloth of her dress with slow, careful movements. He kept his eyes on the work, not on her body. Bruises marked her ribs, some old and yellowing, some dark and fresh. At her shoulder, a small brand shaped like a cattle mark. Colt stared at it for a long moment. He had seen brands on horses, on steers, never on a woman. His jaw tightened. He cleaned her cuts with warm water and wrapped them in clean cloth. And then he pulled one of his own wool shirts over her and covered her with thick bear fur. When he finished, he moved to the chair near the wall and sat. He did not sleep. Hours passed. Wind battered the cabin, but inside, there was only the sound of fire and her shallow breathing. Near dawn, she gasped. Her eyes flew open wide and wild. She bolted upright so fast the fur slid to her waist. "Where am I?" she rasped. "My cabin," Colt said from the shadows. She flinched at the sound of his voice. Fear filled her face as she grabbed the shirt tight around her chest. "Don't touch me," she whispered. "I won't." He stood slowly and poured broth into a tin cup. He set it on the floor halfway between them and stepped back. "You need heat." She did not move at first. She watched him like he might lunge at any second. He did not. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, eyes steady, but distant. After a long minute, she crawled forward and grabbed the cup. Her hands shook so badly some broth spilled onto the floor. He looked away to give her privacy. That confused her more than anything. Days passed. She slept long hours, ate small portions. He changed her bandages without speaking more than needed. Yes. No. Rest. He never asked questions. On the fourth day, she could stand without swaying. The cabin felt smaller now that she was aware of it. One bed, one table, one chair, one man. He was huge, tall enough that his head nearly brushed the ceiling beams. His shoulders stretched the seams of his shirt. A thick scar ran from his ear down into his collar. Yet he moved quietly, careful not to crowd her. One night, and as snow buried the window until only white showed through, she finally spoke. "Why did you bring me here?" He was carving a small piece of wood, shaving it into the shape of a bird. "You would have died. That's not an answer." He glanced at her. "It's the only one." She narrowed her eyes. "Men don't help for free." He went back to carving. "I'm not most men." Her voice sharpened. "What do you want?" He set the knife down and met her gaze fully. "Nothing." Silence pressed between them. She stood abruptly and began pacing. "Then why stay out here alone?" she demanded. "Why hide?" His jaw flexed. "You should sit down." "I'm tired of sitting." He stood then. The room shrank under his size. For a second, fear flickered in her eyes again. He saw it, and it hurt more than he expected. "I know my strength," he said quietly, "and I won't use it wrong." Then he grabbed his coat and stepped outside into the storm. The door shut behind him. The cabin felt colder instantly. She stared at the door long after he left. Later, unable to sleep, she found a small leather journal tucked beneath folded pelts. She should not have opened it. She did. Inside were charcoal sketches, mountains, wolves, a hawk in flight, and careful lines of writing about silence and guilt and trying not to become something dark. Her chest tightened. When the door opened and he stepped back inside, snow falling from his shoulders, she froze with the journal in her hands. He looked at it, then at her. No anger came, only something like sadness. He walked forward slowly, took it gently, and placed it back where it belonged. And he said nothing. Neither did she. But something changed that night. Not trust, not yet. Something softer. Days stretched on. The storm refused to ease. He handed her mittens one morning. "You'll help with wood." "I don't know how." "You'll learn." Outside, the cold bit hard enough to sting tears from her eyes. He placed an axe in her hands and showed her how to stand. "Let the weight fall." She swung and missed, swung again and barely marked the log. Frustration flushed her cheeks. He did not laugh. "Again." The third strike split the wood clean down the middle. Her breath caught in surprise. For the first time, pride flickered across her face. He noticed. He said nothing. Inside the cabin, life began to shift. She swept, mended torn blankets, cooked thin stew thicker than he ever bothered to. But he watched quietly as the cabin grew warmer in ways that had nothing to do with fire. Her name came one evening like a confession. "It's Lily," she said softly. Not the name they used. He nodded. Colt. She already knew. The peace did not last. One morning, Colt returned from checking traps with tension sharp in his eyes. "Someone rode near here," he said. Her stomach dropped. "They found me." "I don't know that, but you think it." He did not deny it. That night, she woke to find him sitting awake in the chair, rifle resting across his knees. Waiting. Fear returned like a cold hand around her throat. "Who are you hiding from?" she asked. He looked at the fire. "Men who think they own things." Her breath hitched. "I was owned." His gaze shifted to her. "Not anymore." Outside, wind carried faint echoes that might have been branches snapping, or hooves. Neither of them slept, and deep in her chest, something new began to grow. Not fear, not quite. Something warmer, and far more dangerous. The next morning came quiet, but the quiet did not bring peace. The wind had died. The snow rested heavy on the trees. The world outside the cabin looked clean and untouched, but Colt knew better. Fresh snow only hid tracks. It did not erase them. Lily stood at the window, her fingers pressed lightly to the glass. "Do you see anything?" she asked. "No," Colt said. He had already checked twice before sunrise. Still, he kept looking toward the ridge. Still, his jaw stayed tight. Inside the cabin, the air felt different, thicker, charged. Lily could feel it. She hated that feeling. It reminded her of nights in the saloon tent, the quiet before a man decided which girl he would point at. She stepped back from the window. "Tell me the truth," she said. Colt looked at her. "I don't lie." "Then tell me what you're not saying." He set the rifle against the wall and walked closer to the fire. "There was one rider," he said. "Heavy horse, clean saddle marks. He circled once, didn't come close." Her heart began to pound. "He's looking." "Maybe." "He will come back." Colt did not answer. That was answer enough. She turned away, wrapping her arms around herself. "I brought this to you," she whispered. "If they find me here, they'll hurt you." Colt's voice stayed steady. "They'll try." That calm frightened her more than anger would have. The day passed slowly. He showed her how to reload the spare revolver. Her hands trembled at first, but he guided her without touching, speaking each step clearly. "Open the chamber." She did. "Check it." She nodded. "Close. Grip firm." The weight of the gun felt strange in her palm, heavy, final. "I don't want to shoot anyone," she said. "Then don't," he replied, "but know how." That night, the fire burned low. Lily sat across from him, studying his face in the flicker of light. "You've killed before," she said quietly. He did not flinch. "Oh, yes." "Does it stay with you?" "Yes." She swallowed. "Why live alone?" Colt leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on the flames. "I had a ranch once, south of here. Cattle, fences, plans." She waited. "Men wanted it. Said I took land that wasn't mine. One night they came. Burned the barn. Shot my brother when he ran out." Lily felt her chest tighten. "I killed 2 of them," Colt continued. "The rest rode off. And I left before I became a man who hunted revenge for the rest of his life." Silence settled between them. "You're not hiding," she said slowly. "You're stopping yourself." He did not respond, but something in his eyes shifted. Outside, the sun dipped low, painting the snow pale gold. Inside, Lily stood and walked toward him. Her steps were careful, but sure. She stopped in front of him. You saved me," she said. He looked up. "I was ready to die." "You're still here." Because of you. Colt's jaw tightened. You don't owe me for that. Her voice softened. I'm not talking about owing. She lowered herself onto the edge of the table near him, close enough to feel his heat, close enough to see the scar near his collarbone. For the first time, she said, no one touched me unless I wanted them to. His hands gripped the arms of the chair. Lily! She slid down slowly until she was standing between his knees. He froze. Her fingers hovered near his chest, not quite touching. You're afraid, she whispered. Yes. Of me? Of hurting you. Her breath caught. You haven't. He shook his head slightly. You don't understand. Then make me. His voice dropped lower. I'm bigger than most men you've known. Stronger. When I lose control, things break. Her eyes stayed locked on his. I've been broken before. He flinched at that. I won't be the one who does it again. The fire popped behind them. The room felt small. Lily reached up slowly and touched his chest. His muscles tightened under her palm. I don't want gentle because you pity me, she said. I want you because you see me. His breath grew uneven. I see you. Then stop holding back! She climbed into his lap before she could lose her nerve, straddled him. Her knees pressed against his hips. Her hands rested on his shoulders. He sucked in a sharp breath. Lily! She leaned closer, her hair brushing his jaw. I'm not afraid of you. You should be. I'm not. His hands hovered in the air, uncertain where to land. Yet she took them and placed them on her waist. They felt enormous there. Warm. Shaking. Try me, she whispered. His control snapped tight like a rope pulled too hard. He lifted her gently, almost painfully carefully, and set her back on her feet. I'm too big for you, he said, voice rough, in ways that matter. The rejection hit her fast. Her face burned. You think I'm weak? I think you deserve more than being overpowered. She stepped back. You think I can't choose. I think you've had choice stolen enough. Silence fell heavy. She turned away, swallowing the sting in her throat. That night, she lay awake facing the wall. He stayed in the chair again. Distance stretched between them. In the morning, she found him outside building something against the far wall of the cabin. A second cot. Her stomach twisted. Yet she walked back inside without a word. When he returned carrying planks, she stood waiting. You building space? She asked. He met her eyes. I don't want to make you feel cornered. Something inside her snapped. She grabbed the axe from the woodpile and walked straight to the frame. Before he could react, she swung. The first strike split one board clean through. Lily! She swung again. I won't sleep like a guest. Another crack. I won't live like I'm passing through. The frame collapsed under the third blow. She stood breathing hard, chest rising fast. I stay because I want to, she said. Not because I have nowhere else. Colt stared at the broken wood, then at her. Slowly, something like pride moved across his face. He stepped forward. Not close enough to trap, just close enough. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. Neither do I. That honesty settled between them like fresh snow. Clean. Outside, a distant sound carried through the trees. Hooves. Both of them heard it. Colt moved first. He grabbed the rifle. Lily grabbed the revolver. They stood side by side at the window. 3 riders broke through the tree line. Her blood ran cold. She recognized the man in front instantly. Silas Grady, the one who had bought her contract, the one who branded her shoulder. Her breath turned shallow. He found me, she whispered. Colt's voice turned to steel. Go to the back room. No. Lily, I'm not hiding. The rider stopped 20 yards from the cabin. Silas smiled when he saw her silhouette in the window. He dismounted slowly, boots crunching in the snow. "Clara!" he called out, using the old name. "You run far for a girl who belongs to me." Colt stepped onto the porch. "She doesn't belong to anyone." Silas laughed. "You sheltering stolen property now, cowboy?" "She's not property." Silas's eyes narrowed. "She signed a debt. She was sold." Same difference. Lily stepped out beside Colt. Her hand did not shake this time. "I'm not yours," she said clearly. Silas's smile faded. "You think hiding behind him changes that?" Colt moved slightly in front of her. "Leave," he said. One of Silas's men reached for his gun. Colt raised the rifle. Silas lifted a hand, stopping his man. "Careful," Silas said softly. "You don't know who you're standing against." Colt's voice stayed calm. "I don't care." Tension stretched thin. The wind picked up again, stirring loose snow around their boots. Silas studied Colt for a long moment. Then he looked at Lily. "You'll come back," he said, "when he realizes your trouble." Lily stepped forward. "I'd rather freeze." Something dark passed over Silas's face. He mounted his horse slowly. "This isn't finished," he said. Colt did not lower the rifle until the riders disappeared into the trees. Only then did he exhale. Lily felt her knees weaken. Colt caught her before she fell. This time, she did not pull away. He held her tight. Not gentle, not distant. Strong. Protective. And she leaned into him fully. For the first time, she felt like she was not running, but standing. And somewhere deep inside Colt Maddox, a decision was made. He would not let anyone take her again, not while he was breathing. Snow began to fall again that night, but it was not a wild storm this time. It was slow and steady, like the sky was thinking. Inside the cabin, the fire burned low and quiet. Lily sat at the table, staring at her hands. They were steady now, not shaking like before, not reaching for escape. Colt stood near the door, checking the lock for the third time. "They'll come back," she said softly. "Yes. You could leave." He looked at her. "I won't. They're my past, not yours." He stepped closer. "You're here. Yeah, that makes it mine." Her chest tightened at that. Silas Grady was not a man who let go of what he thought he owned. He had money, men, and a long reach. He had made his living by trapping girls in contracts they could never repay. He smiled while doing it. Colt knew men like him, men who used paper and fear instead of fists. The next morning, Colt rode to town alone. Lily watched him disappear down the ridge, her stomach twisted tight. She hated the waiting, hated feeling exposed. The cabin felt too open without him. She cleaned, swept, stoked the fire, checked the revolver twice. By noon, the sky cleared. By late afternoon, she heard hooves. Her heart jumped into her throat. She grabbed the gun and stepped outside. It was Colt, but he was not alone. Behind him rode Sheriff Daniel Harper, a broad man with gray in his beard and eyes that had seen too much of the territory. They dismounted. Lily kept the gun lowered, but ready. Sheriff Harper looked at her shoulder where the brand rested beneath her shirt. "I heard about you," he said gently. "Town's been whispering." She did not know if that was good or bad. Colt spoke first. "Silas claims she owes him debt. Says he has papers." Harper nodded slowly. "He does." Lily's breath caught. "But," Harper continued, "those contracts are thin as paper in winter rain, most signed under threat." She stared at him. "So, I'm free?" Harper looked at Colt. "That depends." The word felt like a knife. "On what?" she asked. "On whether you're willing to stand in town and say what he did." Her stomach turned. Stand in town. In front of everyone. Tell them. But Colt stepped closer to her. You don't have to, he said quietly. She looked at him. If she stayed silent, Silas would keep hunting girls like her, branding them, owning them. Fear pressed against her ribs, but something stronger pushed back. I'll do it, she said. Colt's eyes searched her face. You're sure? No, she admitted. But I'm done running. 2 days later, they rode into town together. People stared. Whispers followed like smoke. Lily felt every eye on her skin. Silas stood outside the saloon, smug as ever. You came back, he said smoothly. Not for you, she replied. Inside the small courthouse, the air felt heavy. Sheriff Harper sat behind a simple desk. A preacher stood nearby as witness. Silas laid down his papers with confidence. She signed, he said. Clear as day. Lily stepped forward. My father signed after you beat him, she said, voice shaking, but loud enough to carry. You took me when I was 17. Murmurs rippled through the room. Silas's jaw tightened. She worked to repay. You kept adding debt. She pulled her shirt down just enough to show the brand on her shoulder. Gasps filled the space. You marked me, she said, like livestock. Silas laughed nervously. Discipline. Colt moved, but Harper raised a hand to stop him. Lily kept speaking. You told me I'd never leave, that no one would believe me. Her voice grew steadier with every word. You were wrong. The preacher stepped forward, face pale. Branding a woman is not contract law, he said firmly. Harper picked up the paper. This debt has no witness, no legal seal, and coercion voids any claim. He tore the contract in half. At the sound echoed like thunder. Silas's face turned red. You think this is over? He spat. Harper's hand rested on his revolver. For you, it is. Silas looked around. No one stepped to his side. Not one. He stormed out of the courthouse alone. Lily stood frozen. It was done. The chains she had felt for years were gone. Colt stepped beside her. You okay? She nodded slowly. Then the shaking came. He wrapped his arms around her in the middle of that crowded room. And this time, no one whispered. They rode back to the cabin as the sun dipped low behind the mountains. The air felt lighter, but something still waited between them. That night, the fire crackled softly. Lily stood near the window, watching stars prick the dark sky. I kept offering myself because it was the only value I thought I had, she said quietly. But Colt stood behind her. You have more. I know that now. She turned to face him. No fear in her eyes. No shame. Only choice. She stepped closer, placed her hand on his chest. I want you, she said. Not because I owe. Not because I'm broken. Because I choose. His breath slowed. You're sure? Yes. He searched her face one last time. Then he kissed her. Not rushed, not hungry. Slow, careful, like he was learning something precious. Her hand slid around his neck. His arms wrapped around her waist. When she climbed into his lap this time, there was no hesitation, no pulling away. He held her firmly, strong, but controlled. You're not too big, she whispered with a faint smile. He almost laughed. I was scared. So was I. He brushed hair from her face. I'll never take from you, he said. I know. That night was not about proving strength. It was about trust, about choosing each other without fear standing between them. Outside, the wind moved gently through the trees. Inside, two lonely people found warmth they had both thought was gone forever. Spring came slow to Montana. Snow melted into streams. Grass pushed through frozen ground. Colt repaired fences. Lily planted seeds in a small patch near the cabin. She laughed more now, spoke louder, walked with her head high. One evening, as the sun sank low, Colt stood beside her near the stream. "I was ready to live alone forever," he said. "Me too." He took her hand. "I don't want to anymore." She squeezed his fingers. "Good." Weeks later, Sheriff Harper rode up again. He carried papers this time. "Land claim," he said. "If you want it." "What as a household?" Colt looked at Lily. She nodded. Harper cleared his throat. "For shared claim, law assumes marriage." Silence hung in the air. Colt turned to her. "You don't have to." She smiled softly. "I want to." They married beside the stream where the snow first melted. No big crowd, no grand speech. Just Harper, the preacher, and the mountains. Colt held her hand steady. "You're not property," he said quietly. "You're my partner, and you're not my shield," she replied. "You're my home." When the preacher finished, Colt kissed her forehead first, then her lips. Gentle, certain. Years passed. The cabin grew. A barn stood where empty snow once stretched. Children's laughter echoed through the valley. Lily sometimes touched the faint scar on her shoulder, but it no longer defined her. One evening, sitting on the porch, she leaned back into Colt's chest. The sky burned orange over the peaks. "You were right," she said softly. "About what?" "You were too big." He frowned slightly. "For what?" She turned her head, smiling. "For my old life." He wrapped his arms around her tighter. The wind moved gently across the plains, not screaming, not judging, just passing through. And for the first time, neither of them felt like something waiting to be buried. They felt like something built to last.